In this video, we're going to be building the data model of our VehicleHistoryGraph demo database, which you can find in Studio if you go to our cloud downloads. It describes a system that could be used for tracking the history of a vehicle through its lifespan and different ownerships. I have pictured here the V class, which is the base class for anything that's going to be a vertex. Several subclasses here, everything from a transaction to a person, a vehicle, make, and model. And below vehicle, we have three subclasses, different types of vehicles: an automobile, motorcycle, or a moped. The white rectangles at the bottom, these represent edge classes. So we have everything from owns, bought, sold, purchased, is model, and is make. I'm going to illustrate some of the relationships I was hoping to demonstrate with this data. We'll go to the make and model relationship, and you can see here we have one make, which is Ford, and two models, which is the Taurus and the Focus. And we're using the is make edge to identify that this model is of the Ford make. Likewise, we have two automobile instances illustrated here with different VIN numbers, and they have an is model edge pointing into the model that they are. So here we have two automobiles that are Tauruses and a Taurus that is of make Ford. Next, we have an ownership setup where we can start looking at the history of ownership and how that all worked. In this example, we could start with a manufacturer, so the Ford Motor Company sold a vehicle, the date 2012, selling price $24,900, and it was bought by Mandy Spence. So you can see the edges, bought and sold, and then an automobile instance with a purchased edge. Beyond that, we can see that Mandy ended up selling it in 2014 for $18,300 and sold it to Bob Jones. And Bob Jones is the current owner specified by the owns edge. So that's the relationships I was hoping to illustrate, and we're going to work with the data a little bit when we're done. So let's take a look and jump into Studio, and we'll build this model. So I've got a Finder window in my terminal open. You can see in the databases folder of my OrientDB distribution, we only have the Grateful Dead concerts. So we're going to build this from scratch. First, I'll go to my desktop, which is where I have my OrientDB folder. And I'll go to the bin directory, /server.sh. We'll start up OrientDB server. We'll switch over to our other screen, and I'm going to go to Studio. So it's localhost 2480. And we've got our Grateful Dead concerts, but we're going to create a new database. We're going to call it VehicleHistoryGraph. And we'll put in our root credentials, which you got when you started up. And we're going to do a very casual run through of building this model. So you may see some typos. I've got this reference here in PDF just so I can follow along. I'll put it off to the side here. I'll do a lot of this in the browse mode because I'm a relatively quick typer, but we'll do a few visual first. So let's create our transaction class. And we'll do a superclass of V. And just like that, we've got our new class, transaction. Likewise, we could go into transaction and make those properties. So new property, we'll do our date property. It's date type. We'll actually make this mandatory. We'll do the rest of this class visually. So we've got our price, which is a decimal, and that will also be mandatory. We'll save the book value, which is the value that they put on it for tax purposes. That's also a decimal and mandatory. And finally, whether it's certified or not. And that's a Boolean and mandatory as well. So we'll save. We've got our transaction class done. Go to the Browse tab and let's do some with our SQL API. Create class person extends V. So we've created person. We'll just buzz through these. Vehicle, make, model. And we'll go ahead and make the subclasses of vehicle. So create class automobile extends vehicle. We also have motorcycle and moped. So our classes are all made. Now we can go ahead and make our edge classes. So create class owns, extends E for edge, bought, sold, purchased, is model, and is make. So there, all of our classes have been made. You can see them here with the proper superclasses, etc. Now we've got some properties to build. We're done transactions, so we'll start with person. Create property, person dot first name is a string, last name, full name, those are all string, and then a birthday is a date. Next class we'll do the properties for is vehicle. So mileage will be an integer. The VIN will be a string. Color will be a string. Safety and emissions will be booleans. So this if they had the safety test or they had the emissions test. Okay, next one we're doing is make dot name, and that's a string. Then we're into model. So we have city mile per gallon. I believe that's a decimal. I have sample data that I'll be sharing with you. And it's all in CSV. And we have a generator for data, so you'll be able to work with this, and we'll do that in this video as well. So the cylinders is a string. We have displacement, which I think is also a string. Drive, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Fuel cost will be a decimal. Fuel type will be a string. Highway mile per gallon will be a decimal. Model year will be an integer. The name will be a string, and so will transmission. Then we have automobile, convertible, and trailer hitch with the same. So just like that, we've got our model all done and ready to go. Now we should go into the schema and let's set some rules. Make, name will be mandatory. And again, I'm not being extremely thorough here. Go back to schema. If we go to model, we'll make the name and the model year mandatory. And I think that should be good for now. So let's close up this PDF and go to full screen. We're going to work more with this going forward. Let's clear out our history.